The Echo of a Forged Heart, Chapter 1, A Ghost in the Foyer, June 2025. The afternoon sun, a warm, golden caress, filtered through the tall, arched windows of my Charleston home, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, forgotten secrets. I am Evelyn, 82 years old. My days now are a tapestry woven with the quiet threads of memory and the gentle rhythm of art. My hands, though marked by age, still remember the delicate stroke of a paintbrush, the precise arrangement of a gallery display. My life, steeped in the graceful history of this old southern city, had long since settled into a serene rhythm. Or so I believed. My granddaughter, Olivia, 19, burst into my quiet world like a vibrant splash of watercolor. She was a student at the local college, bright, vivacious, full of the boundless energy of youth. Her laughter, a melodic chime, often filled these old rooms, chasing away the echoes of a distant past. Today, her eyes sparkled with a particular luminescence. Love. She was in love. "Grandma Ev," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with excitement. "You simply have to meet him. He's wonderful, like no one I've ever met before." She had been talking about Daniel for weeks, her words painting a picture of an intelligent, kind, and utterly captivating young man. I smiled, a gentle warmth spreading through me. To see Olivia so happy, so utterly infatuated, was a pure joy. "Well, bring him in, darling," I replied, my voice soft, tinged with amusement. "Don't keep this marvel hidden away." Olivia disappeared into the foyer, her eager footsteps echoing on the polished cypress floors. I sat in my favorite armchair, facing the grand double doors, a delicate teacup poised in my hand. My mind drifted, idly wondering about this young man who had captured my granddaughter's vibrant heart. Then he stepped into the light, and time stopped. The air in the room thickened, became heavy, as if the very atoms had suddenly solidified. The teacup clattered from my trembling fingers, hitting the Persian rug with a muted thud. My breath hitched, caught in my throat, a suffocating knot of disbelief and recognition. Daniel. His eyes, the startling, intense blue, framed by long, dark lashes. The slight, almost imperceptible crinkle at the corners when he smiled. His smile. A slow, lopsided curve that began in his eyes, radiating warmth. The way his dark hair fell across his forehead, perpetually in need of a gentle sweep back. His posture, a casual lean, yet with an underlying strength, an unshakable presence. It was Jonathan. Jonathan. The name exploded in my mind, a silent scream of agony and raw, unvarnished regret. Jonathan, my first love, my only true love, the man I had betrayed 60 years ago in this very city. He stood there, a young man of 20, completely unaware of the cataclysm he had just unleashed within me. He was taller, perhaps, than Jonathan had been at that age, his frame broader, but the essence, the spirit, the profound, undeniable echo of the man who had owned my heart. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably, a tremor that started deep within my bones and spread outwards. A cold sweat broke out on my brow. My vision blurred, the elegant rooms swirling around me, replaced by fragments of a distant past, a moonlit beach, secret whispers under ancient oaks, the fierce, passionate embrace of a young man, his eyes blazing with a love that promised forever. Jonathan, the son of a fisherman, not suitable, not proper, not from the right family, My family, the haughty, aristocratic Southern planters, had made that abundantly clear. His unsuitable background, his lack of connections, my destiny, they had relentlessly drilled into me, was to marry within my class. To preserve the family name, the family fortune, the family prestige. I had been weak, terrified of losing everything, my social standing, my family's approval, the comfort of my gilded cage. I had chosen comfort over love, duty over passion. I had broken Jonathan's heart, and in doing so, I had shattered my own. I had married a suitable man, a kind man who loved me in his own way. We had a good life, a comfortable life, but a life forever shadowed by the ghost of what could have been. Jonathan, I knew, had never married after our painful rupture. He had lived a singular life, successful in his own right, but without a partner. He had had a son, I vaguely recalled hearing, whom he raised alone. And now, this, Daniel, his grandson, standing in my living room, his bright, earnest gaze meeting mine. The shock, the guilt, the wave of unbearable memories, the profound, agonizing regret, it all washed over me, a tidal wave 40 years in the making. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this was no mere coincidence. This was fate, a profound, almost cruel twist of destiny. A second chance, or a terrible, inescapable reckoning. Daniel, the grandson of the man I had betrayed, was now dating my beloved granddaughter. The past, it seemed, was not just knocking. It had walked right in, demanding to be seen. And I, Evelyn, the keeper of so many secrets, was suddenly staring at the ghost of my own forged heart. Chapter 2, The Ghosts in the Garden. My composure, usually as unshakable as the ancient oaks lining our street, had utterly deserted me. My face felt stiff, frozen in a mask of polite shock. I barely registered Olivia's excited chatter or Daniel's polite greeting. "Grandma Ev, are you all right?" Olivia asked, her brow furrowed with a flicker of concern. "You look a little pale." I forced a brittle smile, my voice raspy. "Just a touch of the heat, darling, and perhaps a sudden dizzy spell. Old age, you know." I waved a dismissive hand, trying to regain control. Daniel, ever the gentleman, quickly offered to fetch me water. As he walked away, his gait, his lean frame, even the way his shoulders hunched slightly when he turned his head, every movement was a chilling echo of Jonathan. Olivia, too caught up in her new romance to notice the depth of my turmoil, continued to gush. "Isn't he just wonderful, Grandma? He's studying history, just like I am. And he loves old books. And he plays the guitar beautifully. He even writes his own songs." A sharp pang went through me. Jonathan had played the guitar. He had written me songs, simple, heartfelt melodies that spoke of our forbidden love, of dreams whispered under starry skies. My throat tightened. The similarities were uncanny, frightening. Over the next few weeks, Olivia and Daniel became a constant presence in my home. They would sit in the garden, poring over textbooks, their heads bent close together, their voices a low murmur of shared jokes and whispered confidences. I watched them from my window, my heart a complex tangle of emotions. Love for Olivia, a fierce, protective love, and for Daniel, a painful, agonizing mixture of affection and profound regret. I saw Jonathan in him every day, in the way Daniel's eyes would light up when Olivia spoke about something she was passionate about, in the way he would gently tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. in his quiet kindness, his innate politeness, the unwavering steadiness of his gaze. He possessed the same unpretentious charm, the same deep sincerity that had first drawn me to Jonathan. And as I watched them, the past returned with a vivid, almost unbearable clarity. Images flooded my mind. Secret meetings on the sprawling grounds of my family's old plantation, our forbidden sanctuary, the scent of magnolias heavy in the humid air, Jonathan's strong, calloused hand gripping mine, his fervent whispers of a future we would build together, away from the judgmental eyes of Charleston society. "We'll go north, Evie," he'd said, his eyes bright with dreams. "To a place where it doesn't matter what your family name is, only what you make of yourself. We'll build a life, a real life, together." The grand, imposing figures of my parents, guardians of the Holloway legacy. My father, a man of rigid principles and unbending expectations. My mother, beautiful and refined, but cold, her love conditional upon adherence to their strict social codes. "A Holloway marries a Holloway," my father would thunder, "or a Rutledge, or a Middleton, someone of our standing, not some common fisherman's son, Evelyn. You will disgrace this family." Their words, like sharp blades, had cut deep, slicing away at my resolve, at my love. I had been young, impressionable, terrified of disappointing them, of being cast out, of losing the comfortable life I had always known. I had chosen fear over love, security over passion. The memory of that choice, that agonizing decision, was a constant throb in my chest. I had written Jonathan a letter, a cold, formal letter breaking off our engagement, a letter dictated by my father, devoid of any genuine emotion. I had watched his face as he read it, his eyes, those brilliant blue eyes, clouding over with disbelief, then a devastating, profound hurt. He had simply nodded, his shoulders slumped, and walked away, never to look back. And I, behind my carefully constructed mask of composure, had shattered into 1,000 pieces. The guilt, dormant for decades, now festered, a living thing inside me. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was fate, nudging me, pushing me, demanding that I confront the ghost of my past. This was my chance to atone, to make amends, not just for myself, but for Jonathan through his grandson. My restless mind began to search. I needed to know what had become of Jonathan. After our painful split, I had tried, for a brief time, to follow his life through whispered rumors and discreet inquiries. I knew he had left Charleston, built a life elsewhere. I had heard he never married, and that he had a son. But then, as the years turned into decades, I had deliberately suppressed his memory, burying the pain deep beneath layers of respectable Charleston society. Now, with Daniel's presence a constant, vivid reminder, the need to know became overwhelming. I used my old connections, discreetly, carefully, and what I uncovered brought a new wave of emotion. Jonathan had indeed never married. He had raised his son alone, a testament to his quiet strength and unwavering commitment. He had returned to Charleston in his later years, a successful, respected man, and he had dedicated his life to something profoundly noble. He had founded a charitable trust, a fund dedicated to providing education and opportunities for disadvantaged children from low-income families in Charleston, particularly those from the fishing communities, the same world he had come from. A direct line of descendants, from his son to Daniel, a charity for children. It was a stark contrast to my life, spent meticulously managing my family's inherited wealth, buying and selling beautiful but ultimately inanimate, works of art. Jonathan had built something real, something lasting, something that made a difference. And he had done it, I now realized, with the strength and resolve that I had always admired, a strength I had tragically failed to possess myself. The weight of my betrayal pressed down on me. I saw Olivia and Daniel. Their laughter, their whispered secrets, their hands clasped in innocent affection. Their love was pure, unburdened by the cruel realities of class or expectation. It was an echo of what Jonathan and I had once shared, a beautiful, haunting reflection. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that I couldn't let history repeat itself. And I couldn't, not any longer, live with the crushing weight of my secret. The time had come for me to face the past. Not just for myself, but for them. Chapter 3. The Untouched Box. The knowledge of Jonathan's quiet, impactful life, of the profound good he had brought into the world, pressed down on me with an almost unbearable weight. He had turned his pain, our broken love, into something noble, while I, trapped in my gilded cage, had only managed to preserve a hollow, comfortable existence. The guilt became a constant companion, a heavy shroud wrapped around my heart. My days were now consumed by this secret, this spectral presence of Jonathan's legacy in my home. I watched Olivia and Daniel, their young love blossoming, and saw the heartbreaking parallel to my own youth. They were so open, so unburdened by the social strictures that had suffocated me. They lived in a different Charleston, the city slowly, painfully, shedding its old skin of rigid class distinctions. But the wounds of the past, my wounds, still festered. One afternoon, as Olivia and Daniel were out, I found myself drawn to the attic. It was a dusty, forgotten realm, filled with the ghosts of generations past, antique furniture swathed in white sheets, boxes filled with yellowed letters, brittle lace, and the faint scent of cedar and thyme. I knew there was a box here, a box I had locked away decades ago, a repository of memories too painful to revisit, yet too precious to discard. I found it in a dark corner, tucked beneath an old steamer trunk, a small, unadorned wooden box, its surface rough and unvarnished, a stark contrast to the polished elegance of my home. My hands trembled as I reached for it, dust motes dancing in the shaft of sunlight that pierced the gloom. I hadn't opened it since I was in my 20s. It was as if a part of my heart had been locked away inside it, untouched, preserved in the amber of youthful love and betrayal. I carried it downstairs carefully, as if it contained fragile glass. In the privacy of my study, I placed it on my mahogany desk, the very desk where my father had dictated the letter that had shattered Jonathan's heart, and mine. The irony was not lost on me. With a deep, shuddering breath, I lifted the lid. The scent of dried rose petals and old paper, mingled with the faint, salty tang of the sea, wafted up, instantly transporting me back to a time of reckless abandon and pure, untainted love. Inside were the relics of a stolen youth, his letters, his bold, confident hand, scrawling passionate declarations of love, dreams of a shared future. "My dearest Evie," one began, "the thought of building a life with you, far from these stifling traditions, fills me with a joy I never knew possible." Another spoke of his longing for the sea and how he imagined us sailing away, just the two of us, towards a horizon unknown. A small, faded, dried wild rose. He had picked it for me on one of our secret walks along the less-traveled paths near the harbor. "For you, my wild rose," he had whispered, his eyes crinkling with affection. I had pressed it between the pages of a book, preserving its fragile beauty, just as I had tried to preserve the memory of his love. And then the book of poems. Well worn, its cover soft with use. It was Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman, Jonathan's favorite. We had read it together, curled up on moonlit benches, his voice deep and resonant, breathing life into Whitman's verses of freedom, nature, and the expansive soul. My fingers traced the marginalia, notes scribbled in his hand and mine, a silent dialogue between two young lovers, dates marked beside certain poems, little hearts sketched beside others. It was a map of our shared intellectual passion, a testament to a connection that transcended social divides. But then, at the very bottom, beneath the letters and the pressed flower, I found it. A letter, my letter, the one I had written to Jonathan but never sent, the one I had penned in secret, tears streaming down my face after my father's chilling, dictated breakup letter had been sent. It was a raw and unfiltered confession of my true feelings, a desperate attempt to explain, to apologize, to mitigate the pain I knew I had caused him. I unfolded it, my fingers trembling. The paper was fragile, almost translucent. My own youthful hand, so different from the firm, aged lines of my present self, spilled out words of agony. Jonathan, my dearest love, I am writing this because I cannot bear the thought of you believing I do not love you. My family, they have left me no choice. They have threatened everything. My future, my place, my very existence here. I am so weak, Jonathan. So utterly weak and terrified. Forgive me. Forgive me for this betrayal. It breaks my heart more than you will ever know. I will never love another like I love you. Please try to understand. My heart is yours even as my hand is forced away. I had never sent it. I had been too afraid, too ashamed. My father had watched me like a hawk, ensuring I severed all ties, burned all bridges. He had ensured I completed the suitable marriage. This letter had remained a silent scream, a testament to my profound regret, tucked away, unspoken, for 6 decades. Later that week, Daniel mentioned his grandfather. He often spoke of him with a quiet reverence. My grandfather, Jonathan, was an incredible man, Daniel said, his eyes distant, thoughtful. He always told me stories about the sea, about Charleston, and he often spoke of a lost love, someone who inspired him deeply. He never named her, but he said she was from another world, a place he couldn't reach, and that she made a choice she had to make. He said he always understood. My blood ran cold. Jonathan, he had understood. He had understood my weakness, my fear. He had perhaps even forgiven me in his own quiet way. He had not been consumed by bitterness, but by a deeper wisdom, transforming his pain into a legacy of kindness, a testament to compassion. My unsent letter, my desperate explanation, might have been unnecessary. He knew. He had always known. And he had carried that understanding, that quiet forgiveness, throughout his life. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. All these years, I had carried the burden of my betrayal, believing I had destroyed him, that his life was shadowed by my absence. But Jonathan had chosen a different path, a path of grace, of purpose. He had found a way to channel his pain into good. And now here was his grandson, a living embodiment of Jonathan's goodness, in love with my granddaughter. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a profound, almost mystical convergence. A chance not just for my own absolution, but for 2 young people to build a future unburdened by the very class divisions that had shattered my past. I knew, with absolute clarity, what I had to do. I had to tell Olivia and Daniel the full, unvarnished truth. The time for silence, for secrets, was over. It was time for reckoning, time for healing, time to finally give voice to the echoes of a forged heart. Chapter 4. A Story Unburdened. The decision, once made, settled into my heart with a profound sense of calm, replacing the agonizing turmoil that had consumed me for decades. The silence of the truth had been a suffocating weight, a burden I had carried alone, year after year. Now the prospect of unburdening my soul, though terrifying, felt like a long-awaited exhale. I chose an evening when Olivia and Daniel were both at the house. The Charleston twilight, soft and hazy, cast long shadows across the garden. We sat in the living room, the same room where Daniel had first walked in, unknowingly unleashing the ghosts of my past. Olivia was curled up on the sofa, Daniel beside her, his arm casually draped around her shoulders. They looked so young, so in love, their faces alight with the simple joy of being together. Their innocence amplified the weight of my secret. "Olivia, Daniel," I began, my voice steady though a tremor ran through my hands, clasped tightly in my lap. "There's something I need to tell you. A story, a very old story." Olivia looked at me, a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Grandma Ev, are you all right? You look serious." "I am, darling," I replied, taking a deep breath. "But this is important. It's a story that connects us all, in a way you can't possibly imagine." I started at the beginning. My youth, my family, the rigid social hierarchy of Charleston in the 1960s. The expectations placed upon me, the eldest daughter of the powerful Holloway family. I painted a picture of a world where lineage and wealth dictated destiny, where love was often a secondary consideration to suitability. And then, I continued, my voice softening, my gaze drifting to Daniel, whose eyes were now fixed on me, a curious intensity in his gaze. "I met Jonathan. Your grandfather, Daniel." The words hung in the air. Olivia gasped, a small, choked sound. Daniel stiffened, his arm dropping from Olivia's shoulder. His blue eyes, so like Jonathan's, widened in shock. I continued, my voice gaining strength, raw with confession. "He was everything my family despised, a fisherman's son. No wealth, no pedigree, but he was brilliant, kind, passionate, and he saw me, not Evelyn Holloway, the socialite, but Evelyn, the girl who loved art, who dreamed of a life beyond this city's strictures." I recounted our secret meetings, the stolen moments, the whispered promises under the sprawling live oaks, the fierce, desperate love that had blossomed between us against all odds. "We planned to run away," I confessed, my voice thick with emotion, "to start a new life far from here, where we could be free to be ourselves." Then came the painful part, the betrayal. My voice trembled, tears finally welling in my eyes. "My family, they found out. My father was furious. He threatened to disinherit me, to cast me out completely, to ruin Jonathan's family. I was young, terrified, weak. I chose my family, my security, my social standing, over him, over love. I watched their faces. Olivia's eyes were wide with shock, her mouth slightly agape. Daniel's expression was unreadable, a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and perhaps a flicker of understanding. "I wrote him a letter," I continued, pulling the preserved unsent letter from the antique box, which I had placed on a nearby table. A cold, formal letter, ending everything. My father dictated it, but then I wrote another, this one. My hand trembled as I held up the fragile, yellowed paper. This one was from my heart. I never sent it. I was too afraid, too ashamed. It has haunted me for 60 years. I handed them the letter. Olivia took it first, her fingers light, almost reverent. She read it aloud, her voice soft, halting, filled with empathy. Jonathan, my dearest love, I am so weak. Forgive me. My heart is yours, even as my hand is forced away. When she finished, her eyes, filled with tears, met mine. Daniel took the letter, his gaze lingering on my youthful script. He then picked up the small, dried wild rose and the worn copy of Leaves of Grass, leafing through the pages, his fingers tracing the marginalia, the silent dialogue between two young lovers. I have lived with this guilt, this regret, every single day of my life, I admitted, my voice raw with the truth. I believed I had ruined him, that he would hate me forever. But then, Daniel, you spoke of your grandfather, and I learned what he had become. The man he chose to be. The good he brought into the world. Daniel looked up from the book, his blue eyes filled with a new depth of understanding. My grandfather, he told me about his lost love, he said, his voice quiet. He said she was from a different world, that she had to make a choice, and that he always understood. He never spoke with bitterness, only with a quiet sorrow and a profound respect. He paused, then continued, his voice gaining strength, emotion evident. He often said that his biggest regret was not being able to change the world, to make it a place where someone's background didn't dictate their future. That's why he started the foundation, to help kids like him. Kids who had passion and talent, but no opportunity. He wanted to break down those barriers. He said his lost love made him see the injustice clearly. My heart swelled. Jonathan. He had understood. He had forgiven me, even without my apology. He had taken our pain, our broken dreams, and forged them into something beautiful, something profoundly meaningful. Is charity, the foundation that had helped thousands of children, was a living testament to his enduring spirit, to his love for me, and to his unwavering commitment to justice. Olivia reached for my hand, her grip firm and comforting. "Grandma Ev," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You lived with this all these years. The pain, the regret. It must have been unbearable." I nodded, tears streaming freely down my face. Tears not of sorrow, but of an overwhelming, liberating relief. It was, darling, every day. But now it's out, and I feel free. The truth, raw and painful, had finally emerged. My betrayal, Jonathan's quiet grace, and the profound, unexpected connection between their love and Olivia and Daniel's. Their love was not just an echo. It was a continuation, a legacy. And in that moment, I felt an almost unbearable lightness, a peace I had yearned for my entire life. Chapter 5, Legacies Intertwined. The confession, raw and unvarnished, hung in the air, transforming the familiar elegance of my Charleston living room. The silence that followed was not one of shock or judgment, but of profound understanding, thick with shared emotion. Olivia and Daniel, my young granddaughter and the grandson of my lost love, sat opposite me, their faces a mixture of solemnity and a nascent, tender compassion. Olivia was the first to speak, her voice soft, tinged with unshed tears. "Grandma Ev," she whispered, her hand reaching out to squeeze mine gently. "To carry that burden, for so long. The guilt, the regret. I can't imagine. Her empathy was a balm to my aching soul. My shame, so long a solitary weight, felt lightened by her understanding. Daniel, his gaze steady, met my eyes. "My grandfather," he said, his voice quiet. He spoke of a great love, a formative one. He rarely spoke of his past, but he spoke of her with a deep, quiet reverence. He never showed bitterness, only a sense of acceptance and a drive to make things better. He gestured around my elegant living room. He built his foundation specifically to give children from his background, from the fishing villages, the kind of opportunities he felt were denied to him. He wanted to break down those walls, those class barriers. It was his way of honoring what he lost by building something good for everyone. My heart swelled with an overwhelming mix of sorrow and pride. Jonathan. He truly had been a remarkable man. His quiet strength, his unwavering commitment to justice and compassion, had transcended even the deepest personal pain. He had chosen to build, not to wallow in resentment. He had chosen light over shadow. "His foundation," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I remember hearing vague whispers years ago, but I never truly understood the depth of it, that it was inspired by us. Daniel nodded. He often said that his greatest inspiration came from the moment he realized the world wasn't fair, and that if he couldn't change his own past, he could at least try to change the future for others. He specifically mentioned how much he respected the choices people had to make, even if they broke his heart. His gaze softened. He understood, Evelyn. He truly did. He carried no hatred. The weight that had pressed upon me for 60 years, the crushing burden of my betrayal, finally began to lift. Jonathan, in his silent understanding and his profound acts of charity, had offered me absolution. Decades before I even dared to ask for it. He had forgiven me, not with words, but with a life lived with grace and purpose. Olivia, ever the insightful one, then spoke, her voice reflective. It's like our love, Daniel, and yours, Grandma Ev, with Jonathan. It's connected. It's an echo, a legacy in a way." Daniel reached for Olivia's hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "More than an echo, Liv. It's a continuum. My grandfather never got to marry the woman he loved because of social barriers. But here we are, decades later, unfettered. It's like his legacy, his desire for a more just world, is manifesting in our lives. A profound sense of wonder settled over me. They were right. Their love, pure and strong, was not just a beautiful new beginning. It was a continuation, a gentle correction of the past. The pain of my betrayal, the loss of my first love, had led Jonathan to build a foundation that helped thousands of children. And now, through their grandchildren, our paths had intertwined again, bringing a kind of resolution, a belated reunion across generations. The next few days were a blur of sharing. I showed them the antique box, Jonathan's letters, still vibrant with his youthful passion, the pressed wild rose, its fragile beauty a testament to enduring affection. We read through the copy of Leaves of Grass, Daniel's fingers tracing his grandfather's marginalia, finding echoes of his own thoughts and feelings. It was a profound experience, a bridge built between generations, between past and present. Daniel shared more stories of his grandfather's life, of his quiet strength, his unwavering principles, his deep, private generosity. He told me about the scholarship recipients, the lives Jonathan's foundation had touched, the families it had lifted out of poverty. I listened, my heart overflowing with both regret for what I had lost and immense pride for the man Jonathan had become. Olivia, with her college papers and bustling social life, suddenly found herself immersed in a family history far richer and more complex than she had ever imagined. She saw not just a love story, but a historical narrative of Charleston, of class divides, of personal sacrifice and profound resilience. She found a new depth in her grandmother, a woman she had always known to be elegant and refined, but now saw as someone who had carried immense pain and regret with quiet dignity. The act of telling my story, of finally speaking the truth, was an immense liberation. The decades of guilt, so long a suffocating blanket, finally lifted, replaced by a gentle breeze of peace. I could breathe again. I could look at Daniel, at Olivia, at my own reflection in the mirror, without the haunting shadow of a youthful betrayal. Chapter 6. The Unfolding Legacy. The weeks that followed were filled with a profound sense of healing, a quiet, almost spiritual calm that permeated the very walls of my old Charleston home. The truth, once a heavy, suffocating burden, now flowed freely, a cleansing river washing away decades of guilt and unspoken sorrow. The bond between Olivia, Daniel, and myself deepened in ways I could never have imagined. We were no longer just grandmother and granddaughter, or casual acquaintances. We were custodians of a shared history, inheritors of a complex legacy of love, loss, and profound resilience. Olivia, with her sharp, inquisitive mind, became fascinated by the historical and social context of my story. She interviewed me for hours, meticulously taking notes, not just as a granddaughter learning about her family, but as a budding historian uncovering a vital piece of Charleston's social fabric. She saw how the rigid class structures of the past had shaped individual lives, how love could be sacrificed at the altar of societal expectation. Her understanding brought a new layer of depth to our conversations, a validation that went beyond simple familial empathy. Daniel, gentle and perceptive, brought even more of Jonathan into my life. He shared old photographs of his grandfather, a younger, vibrant Jonathan, working on his fishing boat, laughing with his son. He recounted anecdotes, small moments that revealed Jonathan's character, his quiet acts of kindness, his unwavering ethical compass, his deep love for the sea. Through Daniel's eyes, I saw not just the lost love of my youth, but the full, rich tapestry of the man Jonathan had become, a man whose pain had been transformed into a powerful force for good. One afternoon, Daniel brought me some of the annual reports from the Jonathan Thorne Foundation. As I read through them, my eyes scanned the names of the children, the families, the communities that Jonathan's vision had uplifted. Thousands of lives touched, futures transformed. It was a tangible testament to the profound impact of one man's quiet resolve to make the world a more just place. A wave of bittersweet emotion washed over me. The pain of our lost love had, in a twisted, beautiful way, blossomed into something truly noble, something that transcended our individual heartache. "Jonathan dealt this," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion, handing the report back to Daniel. He turned his sorrow into this incredible light. Daniel nodded, his gaze distant, thoughtful. He never stopped believing in the power of opportunity. He believed that no child should be denied a chance simply because of where they came from. He never said it directly, but I always felt that his own experiences, his own heartaches, fueled that passion. It was then that I truly felt the circle complete. My betrayal, though deeply painful and regrettable, had perhaps, inadvertently, served a larger purpose. My weakness had, in some unknowable way, ignited Jonathan's strength. My choice, however flawed, had set him on a path that led to profound good. It didn't excuse my actions, but it allowed me to see them through a lens of greater understanding, of ultimate, if painful, redemption. I began to devote my remaining years to supporting the Jonathan Thorne Foundation. I used my knowledge of Charleston society, my remaining connections, to quietly advocate for the foundation, to host small, discreet fundraising events in my home, the same home that had once been a symbol of the very class distinctions that had driven Jonathan and me apart. It was a small act, a symbolic gesture, but it brought me a profound sense of peace. It was my way of honoring Jonathan, of finally contributing to his legacy. Olivia and Daniel continued their romance, their love blossoming beautifully, unburdened by the ghosts that had once haunted my own past. They moved through Charleston, a city slowly but surely evolving, embracing a future where social standing mattered less than character and contribution. They were a testament to the power of love to bridge divides, to heal old wounds, to forge new paths. My health, though fading with age, was accompanied by a lightness of spirit I hadn't felt in decades. The guilt, once a suffocating weight, had been lifted. I finally understood that while love could be lost, its echo, its ripple effect, could create profound good. Jonathan had not lived a life of bitterness, but one of purpose and quiet grace, and through his grandson and my granddaughter, his spirit of forgiveness had reached me, finally granting me the peace I had longed for. The old house in Charleston, once a silent witness to my greatest regret, now hummed with a different kind of energy. It was a place of quiet understanding, of shared history, and of a future built on compassion and truth. My life, Evelyn, in its final chapters, was no longer defined by a youthful betrayal, but by a belated, profound redemption. The echo of a forged heart had finally found its true loving cadence, creating a symphony of healing that transcended time, class, and the painful choices of the past. Jonathan's love, though lost to me, had truly lived on, a powerful, enduring force for good, culminating in the beautiful, intertwined legacy that bloomed before my very eyes.